Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You have been to Erbil for a few days, and recently you have met some officials in Erbil. I wonder, are you here for a certain project or it's just a regular visit?
Well, I love coming to Erbil. This is my third visit.
Keep coming.
So, I'm sorry?
So keep coming.
Yeah, I love coming here. It's my third visit here in the last few months. But in particular, I've had some very good discussions with the leaders of the Kurdistan Regional Government. And there are a number of challenges that are facing Iraq right now and also facing the KRG. So we had some really useful and productive discussions.
So you met the President of Kurdistan, the Prime Minister. What was your, what were you talking about more?
We spoke about the challenges that are facing Iraq right now. We spoke in particular about the economic situation in Iraq. These are very challenging times, obviously with the effects of the coronavirus on the economy and also the effects of the big drop in the oil price on government budgets. And of course we know that negotiations are going on between the KRG and the central government to reach a financial settlement. And as Britain, we are keen to ensure that an agreement is reached and that there is a fair and durable settlement.
The new Iraqi government has support regionally and internationally. Do you think this government can sort out the problems in Iraq?
Well, we have huge confidence in the leadership of Mustafa Kadhimi. I think it's a remarkable thing that he was able to become Prime Minister with such widespread support among the political blocs in Parliament. His government has strong international support from the UK, from other Western countries, and also from countries in the region. I thought it was very striking how many Arab foreign ministers were very quick to call the new Foreign Minister, Fawad Hussein. So I think with that combination of regional support for the new government and international support, he will have the best possible chance to help overcome the challenges at the moment.
Okay. While you are here, the region, the Kurdistan, and even entire the world are facing lots of difficulties due to coronavirus. In Kurdistan, the situation is a bit different because the government is not able to pay the wages, the salaries for the people. And from Iraq, the budget, the Kurdistan's budget, have been cut recently. And the Kurdish regional government is under pressure financially. How do you see this situation? What's the best way to treat these difficulties?
Well, as you say, there are real difficulties right now because of Corona and the fall in oil prices. So we know that government revenues in Baghdad are under pressure. However, I also know that the new finance minister and the new prime minister are working hard to try to introduce some economic reforms to allow government salaries to be paid. So there is work underway in Baghdad, and I know discussions are underway between the KRG and Baghdad, and we really hope that a solution is found, a fair solution and a durable solution that will allow salaries to be paid across the whole of Iraq. But as you say, it's a difficult time and there clearly will be a need for some tough decisions.
But as British Embassy, do you have any idea how this situation, particularly in coronavirus and the wages, can be solved?
So there are no easy answers. In the UK, we have faced economic challenges because of the spread of coronavirus. The government has given a large amount of support to those who have temporarily lost their jobs, but we're starting to see the economy recover now in the UK. In Iraq, obviously this will be a decision for Iraqi leaders in the end, but I'm pleased that there is a strong political will to tackle the problem, and I know that you have the very best people both in Erbil and in Baghdad working on this issue right now. So there will need to be some compromises made, I'm sure, but I am confident from my discussions in Baghdad and in Erbil that a solution is possible, and I'm really optimistic that there will be a solution found very soon.
Mr. Ambassador, the British Embassy in Baghdad and the consulate in Erbil, they have always played a positive role to reconcile or to sort out the problems between Erbil and Baghdad. Now these problems exist as before. What kind of project, what kind of help can you do in between both sides to sort out these problems?
So I think fundamentally it's for Iraqi leaders, whether in Erbil or in Baghdad, to lead in solving these problems. As the UK, we're here as friends of Iraq and as friends of the KRG. So if there is scope for us to play a role to help, we're ready. We already offer technical assistance.
What's that, technical assistance?
Technical assistance, essentially we're ready to provide expertise when it comes to economic reforms. We've created a major fund together with the World Bank that provides over $30 million for this type of technical expertise to help develop economic reforms and to implement them. So that's one area we can help. But look, we also stand ready to offer help to both sides if it's needed. But we don't want to interfere, but we do want to support the leadership that's being shown both in Baghdad and here in Erbil.
Okay. Islamic State's activities recently increasing, particularly in the disputed area. This is because of the lack of power or lack of forces, coordination between the Iraqi forces and Peshmerga forces. How do you see this situation? What do you think? What's the best way to sort out or to protect people in this disputed area, particularly Kurdish, Kaki Kurdish, Yazidis?
Well, we remain concerned about the threat from Daesh, and particularly in those areas that you've mentioned. I mean, I'm proud that Britain has played a major role in helping to defeat Daesh through our participation in the global coalition. We're the second biggest member of that global coalition. And there's been excellent cooperation between the coalition and Peshmerga forces and the Iraqi security forces. But I think in order to solve the problem that you've just identified, we want to see cooperation between the Iraqi army and Peshmerga. We want to see that cooperation improved. And I think ultimately we would like to see a durable solution to those areas. There should be a political agreement and a security agreement that comes on the back of that. Because unless there is a political agreement and unless we see a security presence in those areas, there will continue to be opportunities for Daesh to regroup and to organise and to pose a threat to Iraqis that live in those areas and nearby.
So what's your role to bring both sides to this point?
So we are working closely with the United Nations, who have a mandate to work on this issue. I mean, as you said at the beginning, I mean, there are a number of challenges right now that the Iraqi government is facing, particularly on the economic side and on corona. But I hope in time there will be more of a focus in resolving the political issues around these areas. And I'm confident, again, that a solution can be found working closely with the KRG, the central government in Baghdad, and also with the United Nations and the United Nations Special Representative of the Secretary General.
The British forces play such a major role in the coalition forces, and sometimes recently your airstrikers bombard the ISIS fighters around Mahmoud in Qarachor. But why usually these news are mentioning on the media by not much mentioned the British airstrikes, mostly Americans?
I mean, so as you say, we have played an important role in the global coalition. Of course, the Americans have played a vital role as well. I think what's important is what happens on the ground. And you're perhaps right that it's not very well known the role that Britain has played and continues to play. But the important thing is what happens on the ground, and that there is this excellent cooperation between the Iraqi armed forces, the Peshmerga, and the global coalition. And I think as long as we keep up that level of coordination and support, I'm confident that there won't be opportunities for Daesh to make a major re-emergence in Iraq.
After completion of Brexit, do you keep staying with global forces, or you are planning to withdraw in the coalition?
We have no plans. The coalition has no plans to withdraw from Iraq.
You as Britain?
As Britain, no, we remain committed to our presence in the global coalition. We think that work has been important and useful, and as long as there is a need and a request from the Iraqi government, we stand ready to help the Iraqi government and the KRG in their fight against Daesh.
You as British, alongside with American and German, helped Peshmerga forces to have some reforms or to reform. But after 3 years, where are we stand in this project?
I'm glad you mentioned the topic of Peshmerga reform. We think this is really important. I'm really proud that we've been able to play a role in supporting reform and training Peshmerga. I think although there's been some good progress, there's a lot more to be done. And we really hope that in the next few years, we can see an acceleration in the reform of the Peshmerga and helping to create a really cohesive and reformed set of Peshmerga forces who play such an important role in maintaining security here in the Kurdistan region, but also, of course, the role that the Peshmerga have played in defeating Daesh has been very important. So we want the Peshmerga to be reformed and strong so that they can continue to play that vital role.
Have you made any efforts to help trade exchange between London and Erbil?
That's a big priority for me. I want to see more British investment in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. There's huge interest in the UK among British companies in exporting here, in importing and investing. Obviously, Iraq has been through a difficult time recently, actually particularly since the start of this year. And now with the spread of corona, it's a difficult time to bring businesses to the Kurdistan region of Iraq. But I think once things calm down and there's a bit more stability, I'm very confident that we'll see more British companies coming to the Kurdistan region of Iraq. And it's definitely an area that I'd like to see improved really in our relationship.
So far, do you have an approximate number how many British companies operating in Kurdistan region?
I don't have an exact number. I know there are many, and I also know that there are strong ties between the Kurdish business community in the UK and the business community here. So although we're already doing well, I'd like to see more investment and more ties, particularly outside of the energy sector, where we currently have good cooperation.
What I was planning to ask. In oil or energy sector, do you have companies work closely in Kurdistan?
We do have companies involved in the energy sector. But to be honest with you, I think for the Kurdistan region of Iraq, but for Iraq as a whole, we need to see more development of the private sector. It's a good thing for Iraq that there is this fantastic energy wealth, but we want to see more private sector development. And I think if there's one lesson from this recent economic crisis, it's that Iraq and the Kurdistan region of Iraq need to wean themselves off a dependence on oil and gas revenues, because that makes the economic situation in Iraq very vulnerable to changes in the oil price. So I hope to see more trade and more investment, yes, in the oil sector, but also in the non-oil sector as well, because I think that's really important.
Okay. Mr. Hickey, after the coronavirus, do you have any plan to have direct flight from Britain to Kurdistan or from London to Erbil?
I'd love to see direct flights from London to Erbil. I think it would be a fantastic thing for tourism, for education, and it would frankly make all of our lives easier as well. I want to see the same thing also from Baghdad to London as well. We've had some good discussions with the Iraqi government about this issue, and I think the trick is to improve security at the airports, because you know that the rules and regulations around airport security are rightly extremely tough in the UK, and I know in Erbil as well. So I think we have a bit of work to do on that front, But I hope in the near future we'll see direct flights between Erbil and London and between Baghdad and London and Basra and London as well.
Okay, is there any plan, proper plan, or just you are hoping?
We have to do some work on the technical aspects of airport security, and once we've done that, I think there's a real possibility.
Okay, as British, you have been very generous to offer scholarship to the Kurdish students to study in universities in Britain. One of them is Chevening Scholarship. Are you happy with this project? And I wonder if the students who completed the study, all of them back to Kurdistan or not?
I'm really glad you mentioned the Chevening Scholarship Programme. It's a fantastic programme. So every year we offer between 20 and 30 scholarships for Iraqis to go and study master's degrees at any British university. It's a very generous programme. I participated in the interviews for these scholarships, and I was able to see firsthand how great some of the students are wanting to study in the UK. But I would like to see more Kurdish students applying for the scholarships because we have lots of scholarships on offer, but I want to see more students apply next year. So I hope there'll be more students applying. We are very encouraged that these students, they study in the UK and then they come back to places like Erbil and Baghdad and they play a role in helping develop the country and develop it, and they work in different positions in government, in commerce, in the arts, but we want to see these students returning to Iraq to help develop the country.
So you said for next year you have more scholarships for Kurdish people to go to Britain?
We have between 20 and 30 for Iraq as a whole, and it's based on merit. So we take the best students across Iraq, but I think there could be more people applying. And I think some people think that the scholarship is maybe too hard for them to get, but I would just say to those people, you know, be ambitious and be bold, and we'd love you to apply, and we would love to send more Iraqis to the UK in the future. But it depends how many applications we get.
I see. And you particularly put focus for master's studies?
The focus is on students who want to study a master's in the UK, in any field.
When they complete, they need to return back?
Yes, their hope is that they would come back to Iraq to help make a contribution to Iraq.
And so far, all students who got this kind of scholarship after completing their studies back to Iraq, they returned or not?
I don't know all the details. I mean, the majority would come back to Iraq. I'm sure a few stayed.
Okay. Recently, Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, orders the review of the statues and the name of the streets in London. What do you think? Do you think is that a good idea? Because most of these statues are part of your history in Britain. Do you think it's a good idea to change them, to remove some of the statues?
I think it's an important topic, and it's a very sensitive topic for many people in the UK, and I'm sure the same issue arises here in Erbil as well. I think what's important is that there is a peaceful political process to look at this issue. And very often these decisions are taken on a local basis by local councils, by local governments, and by mayors, as you say. And I know that in the UK, because there are very strong feelings about this issue, there are a number of democratic and peaceful processes underway to review many of the statues in the UK. So I look forward to following those processes carefully, and I'm sure that we'll see a peaceful democratic outcome on this issue.
Okay. I want to mention one of these statues in London, particularly in Holborn, which is the statue of Arthur Harris, I think. This person in 1922 was a pilot, and he was one of those pilots who were bombarding Kurdistan and killed many people. That's what people think here. And even on Channel 4, it was a documentary film about this. Sometimes when Kurdish people see this statue, they just remember that terrible time. Do you think this should be removed because of this part of the history?
I have great respect for the Kurdish people, and actually particularly for Kurds living in the UK who make such a important contribution, particularly in London, the city I'm from. I meet many Kurds. I mean, clearly this is a sensitive issue. It's one that I would like to learn more about myself. And I've no doubt that as this process develops in London to look at some of the statues that we have, we'll want to look carefully into this issue and to consider the views of all Londoners. So I think I'm glad you've raised it, and it's something that I personally would like to learn more about and look into more.
Okay. How about the Brexit? So far, do you think it was a good idea to withdraw in European Union? And how do you see the future, near future of economy in Britain? Do you think after withdrawing, your economy is developing more?
I'm proud that in Britain, you know, as in Iraq, that we live in a democracy, and we held a referendum, and the people decided very clearly that they wanted to leave the European Union, and the British government implemented the result of the referendum. We are obviously we are going through a difficult time with the coronavirus, as is the rest of the world right now. But I am confident that in the negotiations that we are having with the European Union, led by David Frost, that we will reach a good agreement with the European Union that will continue to facilitate trade between the UK and the EU. At the same time, the UK is developing and negotiating a number of new trade deals all around the world, which I'm sure will lead to an increase in opportunities for trade between the UK and countries like Iraq.
So you think the decision of withdrawing was the best decision, or you could stay with the European Union?
So we have decided to leave, and we have now left the European Union. But at the same time, the British government is determined that we should maintain very close links and partnership with our European friends, and also that we should look outwards to the rest of the world. We should negotiate new trade deals, and we should be an active player, not just in Europe, but across the whole world. And I'm proud to work for a government that has a very open and outward-looking view towards the world. And I'm really optimistic that Britain can particularly continue to play an important and supportive role here in Iraq, as Iraq faces, and in the Kurdistan region of Iraq in particular, so that we can support Iraqis in tackling all these difficult problems that we're facing here.
So you, as an ambassador, you can play such a major role to bring the British government to this region more.
Well, it's an easy one for me because there's already a huge interest on the part of the British government and British business and the British people in the Middle East, in Iraq and in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. We have very strong historical ties, strong people-to-people ties. We've mentioned trade. So yes, it's my job as ambassador to encourage those links, to develop them, and also to look for areas where we can cooperate, and also, frankly, where the UK can learn from Iraq and from the Kurdistan region of Iraq.
Stephen Hickey, Ambassador of Britain in Iraq, many thanks.
Well, thanks to you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
زور سپاس که بین ارمان بود.